Hi, and welcome to the Captain's Log with Captain Upendra Gupte. My name is Ishan, and today I'll chat with Captain Gupte about his experiences while visiting Port Antwerp. The Port of Antwerp is the second largest port in Europe in terms of freight volumes. It's located on the right bank of the river Scheldt, about 88 kilometers southeast of the North Sea, and the port is a major gateway to Europe. It is owned and operated by the Antwerp Port Authority. The port connects other major European ports as it is strategically situated in the center of northwest Europe. The port is accessible to Cape-size vessels. The Port of Antwerp offers 1,474 tanks with the capacity to store 3.6 million cubic meters of liquid bulk cargo. So, welcome to this week's episode, Captain Gupte.
Hi, Ishan. Morning. Thank you for having me here once again.
Our pleasure. So, could you start by telling us when was the first time you visited this particular port?
1982.
1982,
I
wow.
joined sea in 1977, but it was 82 till I physically actually visited Antwerp.
Wow. 82 was also the year you got married, isn't it?
Oh, yes. In fact, after doing the ship that came here, we got married.
Wonderful. So the ball is in your court. Would you like to share your experiences about this wonderful port?
There was not just one visit. Since 82, the visits began. And they were by the sea and also by air as my roles change. And to tell you mainly about memories, the memories about Antwerp are very interesting in the sense my first visit in the sense if we can call imagination was in 1976 because I was trying to figure out what merchant navy is. So I used to read some shipping advertisements in India, and there used to be often shipping companies advertisements for general cargo ships. Nowadays they are replaced by container ships, and there used to be a typical trade called our ships going to UK and continent, and this continent part was then inclusive of Antwerp as one of the prominent ports. Antwerp, Hamburg, Rotterdam, and so on. And so I had heard of it that way. Then I used to open the map and see where the port was. And then since 82, of course, the visits began by the sea first. And then later in the 90s, when I started doing superintendency and port captaincy jobs, a number of times, of course, I had to travel to Brussels, then go over to Antwerp, and then go on to ships, sometimes sail on the ships to do audits, or sometimes stay there and handle multiple ships. Because I think your introductory remarks about or information about Antwerp are so rich and so current that you already said a lot about this port. And the memories are full of significant experiences of the sheer experience of Antwerp when you're approached by the sea or you're approached by the road, by air. So it's very rich, not only in trade and activity, but also a number of experiences, one can say.
Could you define rich when you say the port was very rich? What was the rich about the
rich
port?
In the sense you make, it sounds a little complicated here, but if you literally walk down the streets in any city, if we call it as Antwerp, and if you, I tend to look down and walk a lot, and while walking, because maybe I think a lot and a lot of brainstorming happens in the head. So literally each square centimeter could be speaking to you of the history. A lot of history. And so it is rich in the sense, it is rich historically. So many things have happened there, culturally, historically, and trade-wise, even the world wars, if you call. A lot of significant things have happened there, including some of the current, the fundamentalist attacks which happened in the neighboring countries, and then there were police actions in these areas. And I was walking down the road, and some of them, the raids and all were happening around us. And my job was, of course, to go to the ship and to look after the ship's business.
But there were raids actually happening when you were entering in. How did it?
This is in the recent years.
Okay.
This is in the recent years. In France and Belgium, in this area, there were fundamentalist terrorist, incidents, and there were a lot of raids on the sleeping cells or whatever the security, the security world may call. And I saw some of those raids happening. And maybe in the movie you can hear a background sound and a kind of ambience is created by the producers or directors. But in reality, you are just going about your normal work. You have got things to do ahead of you. And suddenly you hear snap, snap, dam, doom, and action. So I saw some of those raids by actually bicycle, riding security people, and they nabbing some of the suspects. And so those things also. It's not just that.
Quick question: are you allowed to use Google on the ships?
On the ships, yes, Google is allowed, of course.
The reason I'm asking is, how did you know, did you know what was exactly happening at the time? So, I would imagine being on the ship, entering a port, and watching some military or police action happening on the shores. How would the staff, how would the sailors or crew on the ship know what is going on? I mean, it could be a military coup, or it could be just chasing down a criminal, or maybe chasing off protesters. So wouldn't that be pretty scary? Wouldn't that bring in anxiety to a few people if they didn't have Google at their disposal to quickly check, well, what is going on right now?
Okay, you asked, very interesting. You opened a Pandora's box, actually. And number one, at that time I was not coming by the sea, I was coming by airport to Brussels, and then by air into Brussels, and then to Antwerp by road, and then holding on there in the hotel for maybe one day, and then going to the ship when she docked. And then I was monitoring the ship's movement as she came in from Vendelar down the river, and then I was to go and do operational audit, and then of course based on that do gap analysis, teach, talk, etc., ship-related, business, mainly enhancing the human resource and their existing skills, taking to the next level. But you talked about Google. Yes, Google is very enriching if used correctly, absolutely smartly. But before Google, also, when I was part of the ship's complement, I was coming as a junior officer, as a senior officer, as a captain. I used to have my multi-band Sony, radio. It was like a small brick, very thin, but it had many bands actually. And interestingly, while coming to some of the countries, I had to declare it because it could also receive some bands like SSB, though it was off the shelf.
What is SSB band, sorry?
Single side band.
Okay.
And so on the shortwave radio, even in the open sea, I was a avid listener of BBC World News. And also we could hear a lot of world news. So we were, in a way, at least I was aware of what was happening.
And I must say that was the time when BBC News was focusing on just news, unlike what it has become a little bit today, but that's another topic. So it was pretty useful back in the day to receive headlines and to be up to date as to what is happening.
In fact, I used to write a ship's newspaper for my crew based on that. So I used to go on jotting down the news headlines and small summaries, and I used to make it. So coming to Antwerp, I was already aware of things happening in Paris, and also there were some attacks. I don't know pointedly, but I was alert because then there are of course extra screening, extra security. You're aware of all this, and then I had to wait because sometimes then we have to do extra paperwork because of extra enhance security measures if you're going to the ship. And then my hotel was very close to the central station in Antwerp. It's a very, very, very famous edifice. It is 4-story railway station, and like you said, the connectivity of Antwerp. By the railway station also, you're connected to the whole of Europe. All the way you can go up.
Hang on, so did you say a 4-story railway station?
Yes.
Interesting.
It is. And the architecture is so good. Though I'm not an architect, but aesthetically, I feel good when I see things done very neatly, nicely, aesthetically, and with due respect to the local culture, history. So all that is there. So it's a beautiful combination of modernity as well as the cultural heritage of that area, and which has survived so many, like I said, wars and onslaughts and also good times. This one thing about one very famous area of Antwerp is the diamond area.
Diamond area.
Some of the richest some of the priciest of the diamonds are cut there by some of the best of the diamond cutters themselves. And of course, I don't get to see, but you come to know that this area is mainly into diamonds and diamond trading. The riding citizens, they are on the bike lanes. Like right now we are sitting in Melbourne, and frankly here I would say you hardly see any bike riding people. Over there it is like, I don't know if you have been to Vietnam anytime, but the way you see mopeds going in Vietnam, bikes go within the bike lane in some of the highly concentrated areas of Antwerp, and they really go at full speed. And so it's a part of their daily life. So that road was very close. That bike route was very close to where I was staying, and I used to walk about a lot, catch a coffee on the typical, if it's a sunny day, just sit there, and then that reminds me of a coffee shop. It was named Einstein Coffee.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so I got curious. I had only heard that Einstein had passed through this place, but later I just used Google and looked up the history, and indeed just before the Nazi atrocities heightened, Einstein had successfully escaped on a ship from Europe via Antwerp. So there are memories of that too. So it's wonderful. That is as far as these memories.
How would you rate the coffee? Are you a coffee person for starters?
Yes, I am coffee person in the sense.
And what coffee do you prefer usually?
Absolutely long black, you can say, and black coffee.
Do you remember if you had the same at Einstein Cafe?
Einstein Cafe, no, it's actually like a takeaway part.
Oh, okay.
But the one I had was a small cafe with, chairs in the open. And I just sat across facing the passing traffic and people, and everybody so busy through the ancient buildings and the small routes. Later, when I last went there, that entire area was being dug up for modernization. I don't know how it stands today, but my memories go to until 4 years ago. And Antwerp, as you said, is full of trade. It's very interesting. By sea, when you enter, you actually, if you look up the map, you may not see it, but if you see the maritime surface map, it is somewhat like a very busy road junction. The entrance is from the North Sea, comes between Holland and France area, and then you join through the sea area called Vandelar, which has got a lot of strong currents. Often there is fog, a lot of traffic, sea traffic, and it is well regulated, absolutely well regulated. And also there are some production platform, North Sea oil field production areas. So there are different regulations and a lot of sea boundaries from different countries. So when you are coming by the sea, it's a different experience. you are used to very gusting winds, you are used to a lot of current, so you're alert. You're all the times, watchful about how is the ship behaving. You're watchful that you're not drifting away from your intended coastline and so on. So as a bridge team, you're having the typical dialogue of navigators. You're in contact with the engine room if sudden variations are required, and then you pick up the local pilot. Then the pilot takes the vessel down the Scheldt River up to Antwerp. Along the way, you see there are cooling towers of a huge power station. Once again, if you go into Google, you come to know a lot of stories about it, what all things went around it. But for us, it's a navigational mark. You go around it and then you enter the locks. And locks are the ones where the local water level in the local docks of Antwerp port are maintained at all times. So they are not affected by the sea rise and fall within the river itself. So then you are inside this. Now these docks in today's world, that is where you start seeing the modern world. There are no the windmills of the olden era. They are now probably parts of the historically heritage-wise preserved things. But what you see are huge windmills, massive windmills, and you see a lot of petrochemical tank farms. Then there are docks full of simple trading. Belgium is not making them, not processing them, but they are simply the traders within the Antwerp area using those warehouses to import, maybe resell or transfer or whatever. They are also connected by waterways all the way to, like I said, you can go up to Eastern Europe, you can go to North, you can go to the South, and there is the European waterway network that is also connected here, and they all can carry all these modern chemical cargoes, gas cargoes, container cargoes, and the required expertise is available there. What is interesting is at times you feel there are no dock boundaries or port boundaries, but they are so efficiently monitored that one may wonder, for immigration's sake, if you have to go nearly 3 to 4 kilometers away and process the crew you want to either bring in or they are going out, and how are they managing? But they are very watchful. The enforcement is very efficient, high tech, and it is about the pollution, it is about the human beings, it is about the cargoes, and all kinds of modern technology like the laser radar based crafts may be used, drones may be used for monitoring the whole port and also the surrounding areas. So there is extremely good governance. So on one hand, the memories I would say are about the time you spend in the city, where you see multicultural population, and also there are these well-known, historically famous districts such as the diamond part or the industrial part, and the local specialties like the ways of commuting, a very high sense of environmental friendliness, and also on the seaside there is this maritime trading culture. Like some of the countries you go, you see there are sailors themselves. In Antwerp, frankly, I didn't see many people into the ships running themselves. There are, of course, they have their own experts. But what you see more that catches your eyes is the trading expertise. And with Brexit, I think Antwerp is gaining a lot of importance, and it will continue to thrive.
In conclusion, Captain Gokte, would you like to tell us very briefly Any changes that you have seen through the decades of your travel to Antwerp, based on how it was? And well, you have definitely told us how it is now and more about the modern times, but probably the first time when you visited, those memories, would you say it's any different today? Has it come a long way, or has it really held on to what it used to be?
There is definitely a lot of difference, and that is mainly because of the use of technology, communication, the way the roles have changed also. Say the ship's agent coming on board. Earlier it used to be agent used to come with one set of duties or his expertise. Now that person is like a walking office himself. He or she can make decisions, and they can on the spot respond very accurately because they have data at hand. So the connectivity, the accuracy, the ease of making business has improved multifold. And number two is environmentally friendly business doing was also, again, it was great, and it has even become better and better. It is they are very strict about it, and it is really good to see that the multicultural nature of the population has increased than before.
Right.
Of course, yes. There are a lot of influx from people from all over the world, and that you see also. So yes, Antwerp to visit anytime continues to be very interesting, and it's unique.
Well, we would definitely like to visit with you next time. In fact, we would like to visit all the ports with you so we can relive all the experiences that you just spoke about.
Thank you. And it's really so nice that, I get to talk here, and it's about the memories, and it is not naturally tourist-like. It's not necessarily port information-like, but in a relaxed manner to share what immediately springs up to the mind. I hope you found it very interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
And yes, let's look forward to chatting a lot.
Absolutely. Well, you see, there are a lot of travel logs now, travel vlogs, video logs nowadays that give us a perspective from, as a tourist, but to get a perspective from a captain, from someone who has visited first from the ship or has traveled by plane and then joined the ship at the port. It just gives us a very different perspective altogether. Especially the points to take away today were the historic importance and the remains or the history that showcases or spells out the war and maybe the conflicts in the region, but also that tells us about the increasing multiculturalism, the coffee culture, well, the diamonds, of course. And next time, if you're proposing to someone with a diamond, well, maybe you could get one cut in Antwerp. And of course, what's really important to the world today, and that is businesses that are looking at sustainable solutions and environmentally friendly solutions. So seeing that growth really gives us a really good hope about the positive direction in which this port or this area is growing. So thank you once again, Captain Gupte, for sharing your experience, and to our listeners for joining us today. So thank you everyone, and we will see you in the next episode. Until then, stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ishan.